week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents, where I'm your host, Shaynel Caldwell, founder and executive director of Our Blended Families. And I want to again say thank you for tuning in. We also want to say thank you again to Crescendo Forever Entertainment for that awesome theme song that we have playing. Woo woo! Go and find them online. So again, welcome. We're getting ready to start the show because we have a ton of to talk about, and I'm very excited about my guest today. For those of you that live in the DMV or that keep up with the DMV, you know that school has started, so the freeways are a lot more busy. Parents are breathing that sigh of relief that their kids are going to school, and now they have finally to get back into a little bit of routine with their kids. But we're also trying to figure out what the heck is going on in our current society. So whether or not we're looking at all things Brett Kavanaugh and the confirmation hearings for my girl Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, and we're also going to talk about, for those of you that watch Thursday Night Football, or those of you that are not watching Thursday Night Football. But again, awesome game last night. More importantly, just love me some Nikes and their shares. I think I checked them this morning, $72.13. So we'll talk about that too. And last but not least, we're going to talk about things that are a little bit closer to home, things that are going on in our community, particularly the black community. We're going to talk about that 6-hour Aretha Franklin funeral and some of the fallout that happened from that. I saw an awesome meme the other day where they said you can get the book set, the 6-set DVD to watch the show. But again, we're going to laugh. Hopefully there won't be any crying. But we're going to have a great show today. I'm excited to bring on my guest today, the wonderful, beautiful, awesome Miss Drew Elons. And so she's going to be here with us to share some of her political commentary again. Thank you for tuning in. Give us a quick break, and we're going to get right into the swing of things. We'll see you back after this short break. get started, and I'm very excited to have my guest today, the awesome, beautiful, phenomenal woman, Miss Drew Elon.
Ooh, I like that.
Look, also,
I need to take you with me.
Girl, I'll be your hype crowd in the back. Woo, woo, go Drew. But Drew is here to sit with us. For those of you that watched the marketing previews that we put the other day, Drew is the founder and the CEO of the Drew Elon's Group, a consulting firm in the DMV area that all things helping you market yourself, your products, and making things live and awesome. So
Yes.
you want to tell our folks a little bit about your background before we get into the dish?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I don't know what your audience want to know, but after today, hearing former President Barack Obama speak, he's the president that I recognize, but I would like to say I feel a little rejuvenation. So I am a former Barack Obama presidential appointee, but I hail from the South. I love to tell everybody I'm from the Birmingham, Alabama.
A Southern Belle.
A Southern Belle,
Ah.
traditional modern woman, traditional street, but I love it. But I'm married to a wonderful man and the mom of a gorgeous, handsome son. But yes, so I love all things politics. I love all things social justice. And I'm just really excited to be here with you, Shaynel. I know we've been playing around and touring around this, but I'm excited today to share with you and your listeners about what's going on and having a great conversation.
Excellent, excellent. Again, so happy to have you here with us today. As I mentioned, some of the topics that we wanted to talk about, and I think the first one that we'll go into, of course, this whole Brett Kavanaugh issue. I think that, of course, for those of you that have been following along, which is very important to do so because we're really going into some historic times here. You can hear kind of on both sides. He is I don't want to say he's a conservative. I like to say he is ultra conservative.
Ooh.
He is ultra conservative. And while as a Democrat, I understand that the Mr. 45 is not going to appoint a liberal to.
Right.
He's not going to. It's just not going to happen.
We have
so
no
the rest
illusions
of us,
of that.
Yeah, we should let that go. We should let that go. However, I understand that he wants to put a conservative on, but Brett, really?
Well, I think this reminds us the importance of voting. And most of the time, folks who are on the progressive side or more Democratic or liberal, we, as a party, we never really discuss the importance of the Supreme Court. We kind of talk around it, but we never stress it. And on our conservative side of the aisle, they do. They talk about the courts, the federal courts, the Supreme Court. They talk a lot about that, which means they are really, really clear on why they come out and vote. So
Exactly.
to your point, yes, he is ultra conservative. The thing that we need to watch and understand is that Judge Brett Kavanaugh was never on the original list. He was never a part of the original slate of judges that they had. It is key that he is there now because of how the investigations are going around this particular administration and that particular person that occupies 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I will not call him president. I'll call him Trump. But we have to be real key because he has said that he doesn't believe that a sitting president needs to be indicted, or that he might even need to respond to a subpoena if it should come. And all of this may come before the Supreme Court. And so it's really interesting that he is the one now that is coming before him. But Sister Senator, and I must say my soror, Senator Kamala Harris, she went in, and I think really the basis of what she went through in questioning him about who he's talked to about the Mueller probe is to just show and get him a little bit unsettled because he doesn't know what he knows. But I love the back and forth girl. She looked at him like she was the wife that already knew. Like, you better not lie. You need to think about it. You need to be ready.
Where you been?
Yes, yes. So we need to pay very close attention. The other thing that's interesting about him, he said that birth control is an abortion-inducing pill. So
An abortion-inducing pill.
So if he believes that birth control is an abortion-inducing pill, then we also need to take heed as a woman what that means about birth control and when those types of things come before Supreme Court as they're dealing with and tinkering with health care.
Exactly.
And the final thing, because I thought this was just magic, last night Senator Kamala Harris asked him, name one law that's out there that deals with the control of the reproductive organs or anything that deals with the health of a man. And there's none.
Boom. Boom.
That was mic drop.
Boom. Yeah. and again, I'm not surprised that they selected him. One, this is 45, planning his future to make sure, okay, I know that I'm going down. I know I have an orange jumpsuit in my future, but I'm going to make sure that when it happens this way that I will have an out, that I'll have an escape plan. So not really surprised by that. But in watching the hearings, because I recorded them, I can't say that I was at work, looking on the stuff.
You weren't watching it?
Girl, no, I was busy working.
Uh-huh.
But in looking and watching the hearings, I thought that it was interesting how he said, well, I watched the previous hearings from, former judges that sat before me. And I'm like, okay, that's a good plan. I like that so that you can see, again, everything is precedent. I swear he said the word precedent like 15,000 times.
Yes.
But, well, if they did this, I can do this. If they did this, I can do this. But when she asked him, I understand all that, but have you spoken to anyone in 45's law office? Which is key, because I'm like, really? There's really a plan for him to do some kind of shenanigans, being hoodwinked, all that good stuff, right? You have spoken to the president's attorney, so you are actually allegedly a part of this plan to possibly allow him a scapegoat.
But even, the other part of this was so remarkable, and, you want to talk about whether Democrats or any elected official having a backbone is also when I can't leave out Senator Cory Booker. That man said, bring it. And I love it because he has decided that some of those rules are not things that are binding in a sense. So when that was the rule about some things needed to stay confidential, but this particular...
Can you back up real quick and tell
us
what he did? What was so historic? One
of the rules that they have sometimes on the Senate hearing committees, especially when it deals with judges or any type of confirmation hearing, is that some things must remain confidential. And what they tried to say needed to stay confidential was something, emails surrounding around this particular nominee's thoughts on racial profiling.
And this was back when Bush was sitting, correct?
Yes. And so they wanted to keep that email secret. And so what that also meant is that even though members of Congress or members of the Senate can read the information, they can't even ask questions about what they've read. And so there was this big dust-up because Senator Cory Booker decided to ask a question from that particular email chain that they had and wanted to bring it forward. Now, granted, they went through a process and everything happened late at night to talk about
45,000 pages.
Right, but everything happened late at night to be released. But the point was, I think it was Senator Cornyn who read out the rules of what it means in order to be expelled from the Senate. And as he read it, Senator Cory Booker said, bring it. And I like to say, he said, who gonna check me, boo? Because all of that was about, we're going to make sure that the American people need to know. Yes, he may have the votes, but the American people need to know who these Republicans are actually voting for to put forward. So having information out, they might not can stop his nomination, but they can make it very, very clear on the type of people that the right side of the aisle is trying to put into Supreme Court for a lifetime appointment.
I actually found that kind of distressing, for one, because there are quite a few Republicans that sit in the Senate and sit in the House that have allegedly had mistresses. Or I shouldn't say allegedly because it was proven when you have your mistress have an abortion, but you're a Republican and you vote against abortion.
Or they want to put forward different type of laws that prevent same-sex marriages, but they have relations with
people of the same sex.
Saying what I'm saying.
So again, that typical Republican, you better not do it, but I'm still going.
But also they talk about country first. But where have they really shown country first when they are not willing to stand up to that thing, that person, that whatever you want to call them, in 1600? When do they want to stand up? When do they want to talk about family values when they allow this particular administration to put forward rules and set forward executive orders that will actually separate families, babies, 9 months old, from their families just because they came across the border, which, by the way, they have lied, because many of those that they have caught, they were coming. They didn't catch them. They went up to the border and said,
and
we
presented
are seeking
themselves. Yes, they
asylum.
presented themselves for asylum.
But then they're going to take away the kids, and I don't know if you've seen them, but to see where some of these children can't even respond to their mothers because they feel like they don't love them or abandon them. That's what this administration and this Republican Party has done. But yet they are the family of the party of family values.
Yes. They also had. I saw on Twitter last night where they were making commentary about how, because of the hecklers and the protesters, and there were tons of people that have been arrested the last couple of days in protest. But they said, oh, it was so distressing that they had to remove Judge Kavanaugh's kids from the courtroom. I can't believe they were doing that to his children. I'm like, okay, and how many kids have they party separated from their parents? Did they put his kids in a cage? Because we still have almost 500 kids sitting in them cages waiting on their parents.
But it's interesting to note, they only really concerned about freedom of speech if it is someone that is a Nazi or a racist sympathizer. Like, they're okay with Alex Jones and all of them having freedom of speech, but they're not okay for people who are saying, what about health care for everybody? What about the fact that my child was killed just going to high school? But they don't want them to speak up. That is not where they are okay in as it relates to freedom of speech or anything that deals with the Constitution. So, miss me with they had to take his children out.
Hello. And so I want to say that it's important for us to, have these conversations, in our places of business. It's important for us to have these conversations. You're in the grocery store, you're out at Starbucks, hanging out at Wegmans, but to make sure that we know as a people, these are things that are actually going to affect us. We seriously have discussions years and years after it was granted, having discussions again about whether or not they're going to prohibit abortion. And again, someone's going to tell you, Drew, you are not allowed to sweat today. I want you to know that. We have a law that will prevent you from sweating today. So everybody else can sweat, but not you. So I'm like, we're going back to you going to tell me what I can do with my body. I can see if you're going to tell me that I can't do this or something like that. You prohibit all that stuff. But going back to telling women that you cannot have an abortion, how about you tell some men, put your stuff in your pants? How about that? How about that?
How about if you, here's what we'll do. If you don't want women to have birth control, how about we also say men can't have Viagra or any type of whatever?
How dare you? How dare you say that?
How about?
How dare you say that? Viagra is one of the #1 selling products in America. And how dare you say that? The medical plans, every medical plan, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross, all of them, it's free for men to get those products.
Right.
It's free. It's hard for us. We still got to take contraceptive, but all that stuff is covered.
But guess what? It's also free in Maryland for a man to get a vasectomy. So why don't we just go ahead and get that? What's up with that? Why don't you just
I was not aware of that.
Why?
Not aware of that.
Men can get a free vasectomy. So why don't we just make sure they do that? Then that way we won't have to worry about pregnancy.
I think I'm gonna ask some of my men's groups. Some of my men's groups is watching. Let's see if we can get a movement started, and we'll do what they have, the medical vans, the hospital vans to pull up, and everybody can line up, and then we won't have to worry about abortion.
All the men get their free vasectomies. How about that?
And we'll go do the China stipulation. You can have one kid. You can have one kid. Pick your chick that you're going to have one kid with if you're not married, and then go stand in line and get your vasectomy.
You got to take care of them.
Because we don't want them women having abortions. We don't want that happening. So, yeah, I think we found a solution for that.
I think so, too.
Found a solution for that.
Free vasectomy for all. And you must get it. For every woman who is denied an abortion, every man must get a vasectomy. I like that. What y'all think about that?
And actually, I think we can really make that happen, because if Shantae go to the hospital and find out that she's pregnant, they say, okay, well, who got you pregnant, boo? Oh, Jade got me pregnant. Okay, Jade then has to present himself for vasectomy.
I love it.
There we go. We're going to make sure we take this, clip this, and send this over to our senators.
Clip it, snip it.
So again, pay attention. Please make sure your Republican friends know that they need to be reaching out to their senators and their House of Representatives folks, and let them know that, hey, this is something that we simply are not going to tolerate. too important to our families, too important to make sure not only women that are in need of abortions, and again, that's a personal decision, but women that also are in need of health care, which is also that push that we don't want you to do this, okay, but we need to make sure that women are healthy, because aside from the possible ability to have reproductive rights, you also want to make sure that these reproductive things are still keeping you healthy, because we have so many women, particularly black women, that suffer from fibroids and cysts, and uterine cancer that are all tied into our reproductive system.
And everybody is not running up saying, I'm having an abortion because I didn't like Jay. Like, there are serious health issues and complications that come along from that. And then further, I mean, I applaud any woman who may have been raped and decide to have a baby. Like, I applaud you. But when I think about the journey that it took for me to get pregnant, and then all the love and the warm joy and all of this that I felt as this child was growing inside, it would be hard for me to think about doing that if someone had taken something from me in that regard, who had taken advantage of me. So I can't imagine. So if someone has been taken advantage of, molested, or any of those type of things, why would we be the ones to say, you gonna have that baby? You gonna go through all the, I mean, some women, and my mom used to tell me all the time, that a lot of women are near death when giving birth. So you are gonna just tell them, no, you're gonna have that person, child. No, you can't do that. I am not the God to tell you what you can do. It's all between you and your God, your doctor, your family, and your decision. I cannot be judge and jury on that.
Absolutely. And so, and as she said that, I feel myself getting emotional. So we're going to have to skip gears, because, girl, that goes into some powerful stuff. So, again, let's switch gears and talk about my next awesome thing. Like I said, I'm not an Eagles fan, but I'm getting them a little dap for the way that they played last night. But more importantly, I just love that Nike had their video on during halftime when my boy Cap narrated the video, when they show so many athletes, some young athletes, and some of them were famous athletes that are out there doing their business, but more exciting, showing, wow, not only did Nike have this ad that people were upset about, but they're like, oh, no, we still gonna play it on the NFL network, that people are like, we're not watching the NFL, and the NFL is this horrid place. Now, mind you, we know that the Nike, they paid their money for their video, a couple $1 billion. We already know they paid for that, but I thought that it was really awesome that the NFL is like, yes, we're going to play this video, one, because it salutes all the athletes that we are making money from, one, and future athletes. And so I think that was huge of not only the NFL and for Nike, but the Nike fallout, people burning their Nikes.
And burning down their houses.
I'm trying to figure out who's not doing
is ignorance really bliss when you see something like that? Like, really? You know, I think first let's give kudos for the chess move that Nike made.
Chess move.
It's really, they're making money, right? It's all about them being able to make money. It doesn't matter, because these people who are burning up their Nike, or they're burning up their some of them said they're going to wear Converse, didn't understand that Nike owns Converse. They just, ignorance, I guess, truly is bliss. And then they talked about cutting up all of this stuff. First of all, you do know that stuff you have already purchased, and they already got your money.
Yeah, it'd be different if they was going back. I didn't see anybody going back to the store with their receipt, they box saying, get my money back. So.
But the other part of this is the chess move that they made. They secured, locked up their deal with being able to have all of the NFL uniforms. Then they waited till after Cap's arbitration hearing. Yes, we're going to go move forward. And then they said, and bloop, that was another who gonna check me boo moment when the NFL said, and this person is going to be the face of our campaign. And you know, there's a lot of I think the part that I found disturbing after everybody got excited, and you know, we talked about, by the way, like you said earlier, the stock went down a little bit. Time to buy some stock. But the other part of that I found a little disturbing is people were there have been people who've been offended by the slogan saying even though it means you may give up everything or you may lose everything. And I found that, and everybody said, you know, I served, or there are people who are serving, and we're going back to measuring what that means about giving up everything. And I don't know if, you know, if this is your career, if this is something that he had been dreaming of, to work really hard and play in the NFL. This was a part of his dream, his life goal. That is a lot to him. I can't measure that up against anybody else. For him, that is a lot. And he decided at that moment that to raise the issue and the awareness of black and brown people being killed at the hands of the police and nothing's happening about it. And he said, that is more important to me than worrying about if I'm going to get another quarterback opportunity or work there. And I think people have to look at, if your route is, I want to go and serve in the armed forces, yes, you are giving up a lot for your country. But if it's also you want to go and create and do something else that's different, I'm not going to weigh those different things, because those things mean something to you.
Right.
But I'm just like, I'm excited because I feel like it is a movement. I think even Ford Motor Company has come out saying they support, the athletes kneeling. And so it's like it's a movement where we want to make sure that people understand this is not about a disrespect of the flag. People forget that a veteran came up and talked to
the Cap
about not sitting and kneeling, and that when they kneel, it is to be in honor of fallen soldiers. So he is not disrespecting the veterans. I mean, if we want to talk about who's disrespecting the veterans, we can talk about those people. But it's not about that. It is about raising awareness in something that doesn't require nothing but a silent speaking out against what's happening. And I'm just so over the whole, how do we value people's systems, and how do you tell black people or Hispanic folks and all this about how they actually need to love and serve our country? We all come to this from a different way, but my goodness, can we just not applaud that Nike decided, hey, I'm going to uplift this particular thing, and for those who want to burn your stuff, burn it, boo.
Yeah.
Just be careful about burning down your house. Stupid.
I know that, look, some months ago when the whole issue first came out, I had originally commented, and I still stand by this. In my day job, I work in HR. My MBA is in HR. Understanding that he did this while at work, I completely understand the NFL said, hey, this is the action that we're going to take too, because there is his employer. And so, as you mentioned, there is some sacrifice. I'm going to sacrifice my job, my livelihood, my income stream because of what I believe.
Right.
Okay, and so the whole ramp up, oh, this happened. I'm like, well, you still have to understand that he did this at his place of business. He didn't do this at home. He didn't do this while he was hanging out with his buddies at the park. So again, that's one controversy showing that, yes, he gave this up. And it wasn't that Cap was a golf player.
But guess what?
It wasn't that he was a student, but his whole life was geared towards
Let me
football.
challenge you on that. Do you remember Tim Tebow? He played for Florida or Florida State or whatever. And he kneeled at NFL games when he could play, because obviously he fizzled out and not that great. But
him doing other things.
But he kneeled.
Well, he don't look like
that.
that.
But he kneeled because he wanted to bring awareness about abortion. But I don't understand that if there's really a workplace rule, how is it that you aren't, as part of HR, you don't deliver the same type of repercussions if it's because of what it is? So it tells me it's not really about kneeling. It was about why they were kneeling. But they're okay.
And who was kneeling?
But why too? Because that league would be nothing without African American players. Absolutely nothing. But it's about control. So when you think about how the NFL is all set up, they have something called a combine. When the guys are basically almost naked and they stand up on a block.
Yeah, I watch
and people watch them
I can.
and decide if they're buck enough to take care of what they need to take care of on a field. It's 85, 90%, I would say, black. So you got these black bucks on a block, and you're doing this. And then there are owners. So
there's a whole bunch of black owners, right?
No.
No?
Who are black owners?
Oh, I thought we had a a bunch of black owners in the NFL.
No.
Well, so, how about we got a bunch of black coaches? It's like a whole bunch of black coaches, right? No?
I think we can count them on a finger.
Oh, okay.
But the point is, there is something to be said about the system and how it is all set up. And when you talk about workplace and if this is a work environment, remember that when he did it, they decided to actually try to make a rule. They didn't have to stand up.
Right. Because there previously wasn't.
So they're trying to make a rule that made that, and then they decided to take that back, talking about you're going to get fined and all that kind of stuff. So I think at the end of the day, you're trying to control something where you're already controlling their bodies. You already don't care about what happens to them as long as they are hitting and doing what you need them to do on the field. You already have the worst type of contracts in the world as far as if something happens to them. And so then you're going to also take away their Second Amendment right. And we can talk about whether this is, is it my workplace, it's this or this and that. You're paying them millions, but you're making billions. And so at the end of the day, these are grown men who are out there putting their body at harm. And
for our entertainment.
For our entertainment. And why is that entertainment? Like every time I see somebody hit, I'm like, oh. But anyway, I digress. You like it? But I'm just saying, like, we have to really think about the system that's set up in that way and how the NFL really tries to control these black bodies. It's just another way, as far as I'm concerned, is to control black bodies. They don't want you set up. And I think I forgot the guy's name. If anybody on Facebook can remind me of this, but there was one of the guys who's kneeling, and he's been out there talking about it. But one of the things he said in an interview, he talked about the fact that every October we wear pink.
Hello.
And we raise awareness about breast cancer. We also talk about, I think it's whenever we talk about domestic violence, we raise awareness around domestic violence. But when we're talking about black bodies, why is it a problem?
This is true. Because I personally, I can't stand a little pink breast cancer stuff. I think it's great, but I'm like, ew, pink, ew. But notwithstanding, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's a matter. Look, it's a matter. It's a matter of one, who's in charge, you know, and what the repercussions will happen and the fallout behind it. Again, it's one of those things. I find the NFL entertaining. I'm glad that my coach and my team hasn't said anything crazy because
What's your coach? What's your team?
Girl, John Gruden. Girl, the Raiders. Look, you pull on myself. Woohoo! West Side Raiders. There we go. I mean, because I have a lot of friends that are Cowboys fans, and I'm like, really?
Yes.
The stuff that your team said, y'all still support?
And he still wear a hat. He still wears a hat. Jared, what's his name? Jared, whatever his name, Jones. He still wears a hat during the thing. And I mean, like, my husband was in the old guard. He served in the Army. So if we go somewhere, like we went to a baseball game, and he stands up, and then he takes his hat off if he has his hat on, and all that stuff. And then I stand up and I'd be like this, and he'd be like, my wife. He calls me. He says that I'm Malcolm and he's Martin. I get it. I understand it.
Different methods.
Yeah. But
same cause.
Yeah, but different methods. But I get it and I understand it. But when my husband talks about what you're supposed to do, I don't see that done even at the games that you go to. I don't see the same
people standing up paying attention. Look, standing up paying attention during the anthem.
Yeah, they don't pay attention. They talking. They doing all this other stuff. But you're upset that this person isn't attention. He is still listening. He's just kneeling peacefully, protesting what's happening to black and brown bodies. That's all it really is.
Yeah, my brother, he is. He used to be a Cowboys fan, but he was also retired Navy. He did active duty, and he also did, I believe, 17 years of reserve. But he is actually protest. He run into his second year of protest. He says, "I'm not watching." He did not feel disrespected by what Cap did. He understood it, and he supported. So I'm like, hey, all power to you. I got you. I'm supporting, but I'm watching. We're going to keep it going. So again, we want to shout out. Kudos to Nike. Kudos to some of the other companies that are supporting this movement, because, again, it's not about the flag. It's about what's going on in our country. I'm still waiting on those folks down in some of the southern regions is walking around with their Nazi flags. Ain't nobody said nothing to them about disrespecting the American flag. How you gonna raise a Nazi flag?
Yeah, the Confederate flag. That is definitely you're saying that we want
because we fought a war to bury that dang Confederate flag. We fought a war. Remember, it's called the Civil War. Y'all remember that? So I'm just like, really? That's not being disrespectful to the American flag? Because that's got nothing to do with my cause.
It's heritage.
Okay.
It's heritage, okay? It's heritage.
All right.
It's history.
Yeah,
that needs to be put in a museum, and that's it.
Well, I'm waiting on the rest of my folks to tell them to go back to where they came from, since they waving the Nazi flag. You know, ain't no Nazis over here. They have their own country. You're more than welcome to go.
Goodbye.
More than welcome to go.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to go. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I think hopefully we beat that topic. Beat that to death. And now we can go into my sister's favorite topic, all things Aretha Franklin. Hey.
Rock steady, baby.
Hey.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a big fan of Aretha Franklin, Queen of Soul. Knew her story from back in the day. My mom loved her. My aunt was a big fan. So we grew up watching Aretha, and how she withstood the times, coming from, of course, Rocksteady, starting with Respect, with number one, but just down through the ages to where she kept up and she was still relevant, and how her music transcended cultural lines. Everybody loved Aretha. It doesn't matter, what skin tone, what ethnicity, where everybody loved Aretha. I mean, even Queen Elizabeth, she had her guards playing one of her songs.
Right.
I mean, so you could see that it transcended just not only the U.S., but it transcended the globe. So everyone loved her, and everyone was really disappointed and sad to hear about her passing.
Yes.
So we'll say that. So now to the ceremonies. The ceremony. One, still hearing a lot of feedback on social media about people that were upset that our former president, Mr. Obama, wasn't at the funeral. Comments on that? Because they did notice, of course, that he was at McCain. Well, how come he didn't go to Aretha's? He was at McCain's. He should have been at Aretha's. I don't know when they would have found time to get him in the schedule. Hour 7, hour 3. But.
So let me just say this: could he have been at the? Could he have been at the funeral? He could have been. Should he have been at the funeral? I don't really think so, because my disappointment wasn't really about whether he was there or not. Mm-hmm. My disappointment was that besides Smokey, a neighbor, a child, or somebody relative, every speaker didn't uplift and give the reverence, if you will, for the life and the legacy. It wasn't a homegoing for Aretha Franklin, and I was disappointed. And then with all of in retrospect, wisdom, there was some wisdom in not being there, because all of the fallout afterwards, with people showing, we are into these whole screen grabs now, and you post stuff and try to make it more than what it is. Imagine if President Barack Obama was on the stage while Ariana Grande was singing, or anyone was singing. But particularly Ariana Grande was singing. And the screen grab that I've seen of President Clinton, I think it was Clinton and Jesse Jackson, that were sitting next to each other. So if that was the case, President Obama would have been was there. Right, and President Obama would have been right in front of Clinton, because of how protocol would have happened. And the screen grab, they tried to say that they were so busy looking at her backside, which that if you've ever been in the pulpit and somebody up singing, and you sitting there and you behind them,
that's all you see.
You're not really, besides them trying to keep their eyes open and whatever, I just feel like it just wasn't the right place, just because. And I think the problem was with Michael Eric Dyson. And I have a love-hate relationship for him. You too. I got choked up. Thank you. But because of that, he said the event was too black for the Obamas. So my issue was mostly about, what does that mean? Just because they didn't come doesn't mean
that they didn't love and respect
her.
That
they didn't respect her. It didn't mean that they weren't black enough. That just meant they didn't come. And we all know that McCain asked this man, while he to come to that. And if you look at the McCain funeral, the Clintons were looking like, looking a little tired while they were at the McCain funeral. Mm-hmm. And so his role at the McCain funeral was to deliver a eulogy. I honestly didn't believe that half of those people, the majority of those who were speaking Friday at her funeral, needed to be there or needed to even be on that platform. They used that platform to elevate who they are. And so if the Obamas were there, it would have been about the Obamas being there. And it should have been about the life and legacy of Aretha Franklin. So
I've heard it was a great show. I heard the funeral was a great show.
It was a show.
It was a great show.
It was a show. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of grandstanding. And it was a lot of people barely mentioning her name. And we're not going to even talk about the eulogy and that minister.
Well, yes, we are. Yes, we are.
But I'm just saying, like, all of that, it was just, it broke my heart, and I was disappointed. Like, I walked away really disappointed in how many speakers was it? 12? Too many. 19 speakers. All things Aretha. 19 speakers. And the majority of the 19, probably 12 of them, barely mentioned Aretha Franklin's name. They just talked about whatever issue that was in front of them, and that's what they did.
Yeah. I know that, of course, following the social media trends and, following the feeds, that the conversations went to, oh my gosh, I can't believe what Ariana Grande is wearing. And then, of course, you had a follow spoke, oh, I can't believe, that's inappropriate. Now, mind you, like Southern Belle, we were raised in a apostolic Pentecostal church. Grandma was Kojic, so some stuff you don't wear to church. So, I get that. And again, everyone don't go to the same church. Churches have different cultures and things of that nature. So aside from that, that was one. Two, you get into the bishop that was hugging her and holding her and had his hand all up in her side. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Again, show. We watching the show.
Can we stop right there for that 1 second? So this might be something that people may disagree with me about. Because I didn't sit there the whole 8 hours because I have a life. But I actually tuned in for whatever reason. I decided, let me see what's going on. I tuned in right before Ariana Grande was singing because I wanted to, my mom told me about how she sang Respect, whatever night it was. So I said, well, let me hear it for myself. Mm-hmm. So I tuned in at that time. I watched the whole thing through that part. And when he put his arm around her, I did not see or come to the immediate assumption that he's trying to grope or fill her up. Mm-hmm. What I was kind of like offended by was he said, I thought your name was a Taco Bell menu, from the Taco Bell menu. I was like, oh, like that was
Grande.
Time out. That was not cool until my children told me who you were, right? But when we're talking about the Me Too movement, and a friend of mine and I had a discussion around this, we need to be careful on how we actually deal with or try to call somebody out on inappropriate touching. So if you say somebody is groping me or is groping someone, that says there is an intent. And I just didn't believe, I don't know this man,
that was his intent.
Right. Now, if I had watched it after other people said what they said, then I would have came up with the same conclusion. But because I saw it, I didn't see any intent. Now, the question about women, you need to be careful about how you touch women and ask them for permission. And if your church, is, how they say, hug everybody or whatever, you need to ask somebody to I get all of that. Mm-hmm. But I think I've got a more balanced view now because I'm raising a son. Mm-hmm. All my life as a girl, I didn't know. I'm always talking about protecting that. But, I have girlfriends who, and people I know who talk a lot about how you shouldn't make your daughters hug people and you should make your daughters call people uncle and, all this kind of stuff, and don't hug them without their permission. And if your daughter don't want to hug, those same ladies, I see them turn right around and come to my son and say, give me a hug. Well, you ain't asked him, and sometimes he'll look at you like, I don't want to hug you. But you have forced yourself on my son, but not giving him the same appreciation of what you just said that you would want to see for your daughter, or girls in general. So I think if there's a culture of people who hug, etc. I'm a Southerner. I hug. That's me. But I do always ask, are you okay? I'm a hugger. And I do that, but I think we have to be very, very careful before we automatically start saying and charging people
saying
that they are doing something in that regard. And a screen grab and a focus and zoom in can make you see much more, especially if there's commentary, than what's really taking place. So that's my position on that. Should he have touched her? I don't know. He was too tall. He shouldn't try to grab her around her waist. He should have, he could have put his arm on her shoulder. He could have done all of that. But I do not believe in front of millions of people, he was going to try to get a feel. And I do not believe that Farrakhan, Jesse Jackson, President Clinton was looking at her behind while she was singing. Just saying.
Okay. Well, I mean, we wouldn't blame them if they would. Like I said, that's all they could see was the back of her while she's singing. I mean, you can't see her face.
But they were saying,
the intentions were just sensual or something like that.
Right. They were just probably like, can we? That was what hour was that when she sung? 7, 6. It was all the way in. So they were probably like, I'm yet holding on.
Look, as we nailed down our last couple of minutes,
right.
Going into the eulogy, the first thing that I heard was, and I believe I understand his intentions, especially from some of the commentary that he's made afterwards, but starting off saying, black women can't raise a black man. And I'm like, okay, well, you do know that she had these kids when she was young. And him going into, well, we can't do this, and we're not supposed to do this, black lives don't matter, and all lives. I mean, he went in. And I'm like, okay.
Again, I'm a Southerner.
And he's unapologetic about that, too.
And our eulogies is typically around, and I'm Baptist, our eulogies are typically around how to help somebody in the audience get their life right.
Boom.
And so, if you follow in Jesus' steps, he got more folks with honey. And what I mean by that, he met people's needs.
And met them where they were.
He didn't meet nobody's need by saying black lives don't matter if you got black on black crime, which is something that the conservative folks always try to throw up in your face. All crime happens where it's easy access. So there's black on black, white on white, Hispanic on Hispanic, whatever it is. Whoever's near me, if I'm going to be a criminal, I'm just going to it's easy for me to get to that person that's right next to me. I'm not going across town that I don't know nothing about. Second, I agree. As a woman, I cannot raise my son to be a man. I can raise him to be a caring person. I can raise him to be a loving person as far as how a woman should be treated in my regards, how I like to be felt. But he gets his modeling of what a man should be from his father. Mm-hmm. Period. Full stop. However, you're at the funeral of a woman who did this mostly by herself. So why was that something to be said at a funeral for someone right then, right there? And then in the climate that we're in, your message could have been about how her soul of the music and of the movement is one that we should continue to listen to, making sure that our children understand, to lift us up and encourage us to keep fighting on. She fought her journey. But it's now up to us to pick up the mantle, take what she gave us, and do more. I mean, I am not a minister, but I could have done a better eulogy.
Girl, he didn't even have an altar call. I'm like, you didn't even ask if anybody needed, the Lord. And that was a perfect place. All them people that were there, people that were watching by TV. So I think that was ultimately, and my pastor mentioned that, Pastor Macklin.
Right.
He mentioned that, that was what was most hurtful to him.
Right. And just what he said. Again, it was not about Aretha Franklin. It was about the people who had an opportunity to have a platform.
And it was a great show. A great show. Yeah. So again, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Drew. We're definitely going to have you come back again soon. Can you tell our folks where they can find you?
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter at Drew Elons, and that's DRUEALONS. Website DrewElons.com, and on Facebook, The Drew Elons.
The Drew Elons.
The
And
Drew
yes,
Elons.
you can also go back to our Blended Families website, or you can go to my personal page, and you'll have you'll see her information is posted there, so you can also reach out to her there. Again, we want to say thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents, and we hope you like everything that we talked about today. But if not, at least you heard it. We'll see you back next week.